evening. Welcome to Ask the Prime Minister. A warm welcome as well to our viewers joining us from the region. I'm Sharon Tong, and I'm joined in studio by Editor-in-Chief Walter Fernandez. Tonight, we have Singapore's Prime Minister Lee to answer the questions you've sent in via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and so on, and also at the video booths we set up in your neighbourhood. We've grouped your questions into three broad themes: governance, forging a new social compact and the future of Singapore. So let's kick off the discussion on the first theme of the changing face of governance. We asked you to vote between two questions, and the winning question, which garnered 2/3 of the votes, was: the government has announced several strategic policy shifts. What went wrong? Why are you making these changes now? So, PM, what do you think? Was it a case that the old policies did not work?
What went wrong? The world changed. Singapore changed. And our policies have to change with them. It didn't happen yesterday. It's been happening gradually over the last decade more. And our policies, in fact, have gradually been adjusting. We introduced workfare. We introduced more subsidies for housing. We introduced opportunity funds for our schools so that our children could have chances to enjoy enrichment programs. And every time we had a budget hong pao, we gave a bit more to the old folks for MediSave, for MediShield, for healthcare. But these were individual items. And as the world changed further and as our needs grew, I discussed it with our colleagues and we decided we need a clear signal that we're heading in a different direction. This is a change of course. And that's why this year in the rally, I made the change the theme and highlighted how we are going down a different fork in the road and heading in a new direction. So I think the world changed. I think we were right when we were there where we were before, and we're right where we are now.
You're talking about significant changes to the way social policies are going to be run. And this obviously is going to cost the government a fair bit.
Yes.
Who is going to pay for this and how are you going to ensure that these groups pay for this?
Well, ultimately, the government doesn't have money which is from heaven or from our own sources. The government's money really is people's money. And eventually all the money has to come from taxes or some other revenues from COEs or maid levies or whatever. So that is one of the reasons why we have to think very carefully before we decide to move to start new social programs to spend more. But as we've made the calculations, I think what we are announced we want to do, we can afford to do. But it can't all be out of government coffers from the finance minister writing a check. I think individuals still have a responsibility and they ought to pay some part of it. And the community also ought to take some responsibility for helping to make things happen and helping to support the projects. It's a very difficult problem to solve. You take MediShield Life, for example. We've made it universal. Who's going to pay? Well, premiums have to go up, so individuals have to pay. The government will subsidize for the low-income groups, particularly for the older ones who are in the pioneer generation. We're going to have a special package for them. So the government will put some of it up. But the individual also has to do its part, and I'm sure the BWOs will have their own programs. Now, what happens when somebody doesn't pay?
Exactly.
In the old days, up to now, if you don't pay your MediShield premiums, well, you drop out from MediShield. You lose the benefits, and you're not covered. But now we are making MediShield Life universal. Everybody is covered. You cannot drop out. So if you don't pay, then your benefits will effectively have to be funded by all the rest of us who have not defaulted. And I don't think that is fair. So not paying becomes a serious matter, and then we will have to find ways to encourage people very hard to pay their premiums.
Do you have an idea what these ways are to get people to take collective responsibility?
Well, social pressure is part of it. The rules are part of it. Schemes to help make it convenient for people to pay and to meet their obligations is another part of it. We're discussing it amongst the officials, but really this is not just the officials. It's also how the community, what attitude the community takes towards this. Whether they think it's okay, well, he didn't pay, that's fine, or whether if you don't pay, there's a certain amount of social disapproval. And people can they will express that you're not carrying your burden, you're really free riding. And I think that is a very important attitude which we must develop as a community.
With this greater investment in social policies and social help for the community, do you fear at some point in time we're going to be left with a society that's increasingly reliant on government intervention?
That is a risk. That is a risk which every country which goes this route takes, and some of them have managed it better than others. You have seen many countries in Europe where welfare has gone overboard and very generous schemes, and eventually not affordable is one problem. Country goes bankrupt, but also it saps the will of the people. You become dependent on it. And even people who are working hard rely on these schemes in order to make ends meet. And then when you want to unwind, it's very hard. You've seen countries which have reformed, which have straightened out their systems. Britain under Margaret Thatcher, they pulled back. America, even under Bill Clinton, who was a Democrat, he rationalized welfare in a big way. The Germans, after they reunited West and East Germany, under a socialist government, Gerhard Schroeder, they made many reforms in a quiet sort of way, but made themselves competitive again, which is why they are the strongest economy in Europe today. So you can avoid it, but you have to be very careful.
And how do you plan to make sure that we don't go down the same path as many of these countries?
Well, my government is going to try very hard, not just making the right policies, but persuading people what is needed and where we should pause and think carefully and not rush forward headlong. But it's not just my government, it's really also the population and how the population, the attitudes which the population take towards personal responsibilities, family responsibilities, what the community will do, and the sense that I want to look after myself. I don't want to be just reliant on handouts from somebody else because I have pride. I think the older generation was very much grown up like that, and we hope the young generation will be too.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about changing attitudes, and we have actually another question on social media, and possibly you could use social media to change these attitudes. This other question that we had came from a Lim Zi-wen, asking if governing has become much harder than before, and whether the pervasiveness of social media has made it difficult to canvass support for your policies.
I think governing has become harder than before. Social media is part of the reason. Because people are communicating rapidly. Before, while I'm making a speech, people are tweeting one another and sharing pictures and comments. And that's the way it is. It's not just my speech. A football game is like that. Some entertainment event is like that. It's part of the experience, which makes it a more intense experience. Faster moving, more interesting. But at the same time, maybe faster than we're able to cope. And so you come to a decision before really you've had time to think it over, pause, digest it, and then reach a considered conclusion. So Michael Bloomberg, who's mayor of New York, very successful businessman before that, he was in Singapore a couple of years ago, and he said in Singapore that, with the social media, you're having a 24/7 referendum. Every move you make is judged instantly, pass, fail, up, down. It's like the Singapore Idol. The news went back to America. He made this comment at lunchtime. By evening, it had gone viral in America. There was a reaction.
His press secretary to come out.
His press secretary to come out and explain, no, he didn't mean this in a scolding way. But it is a problem. On the other hand, there are good things you can do with the social media. When we had the haze recently, some people put together a website, and you could identify where N95 masks were available so people could get the information, share the information, act on it, and get together and work together on it. And that's something you couldn't do without before the social media. But there are problems. One problem is bullying. You've seen cases in real life, of course, it happens from time to time. On the cyberspace, it takes a new form. In America, children get bullied, sometimes commit suicide, happens not so infrequently. In Singapore, too, there have been journalists who have written articles, and they've got flamed. There's one thing. In one case, there was a lady whose telephone number got taken and posted onto a porn site. And she was getting phone calls. So this is a real problem when the law hasn't really caught up with us. Another problem is just facts. When the newspaper gets facts wrong, we write to them, here are the correct facts, you put it right. If a TV station gets facts wrong, tomorrow there's the same TV program. Well, you make a clarification or correction. The same eyeballs, more or less, are there. But on the internet, you put one fact out, or untruth out, or mistake out, which spreads all over the space. How do you send the truth chasing after the untruth all over the place and catch up with it? It's quite a problem. Not just Singapore, but really all over the world. And we have to think how we're going to deal with these things.
You yourself are very active on social media. You have your own Instagram account, your own Facebook account.
Yeah, Facebook account. And there was talking about that, there was actually a comment on your Facebook page from a Joyce Lim. Essentially, she works in the hotel industry and she finds it very difficult to attract locals to do shift work. They don't want to do shift work, they don't want to do F&B and service. And she's saying there's a manpower crunch because of the tightening foreign worker quotas.
Well, that's one of the nice things of having a Facebook account. I posted a trailer for my program, and I didn't actively solicit for questions, but questions came, and you can like or dislike a question. So this question floated to the top of the list, and it's a very sensible question, and I think it's one of the plus sides of the social media. And I think Joyce has a point. This is a problem. We've been tightening up on foreign workers because we want to control the numbers and we don't want too many. But it has hurt the businesses significantly, and we have to be very careful because if we go too far, I think the businesses are going to suffer badly. And Singaporeans who are in the businesses, like Joyce, they will take the hit. And we have to help them. SMEs, we're making programs for them. We have many, but we need to reach out better. The hotels, hospitality sector, which Joyce is in, we are trying to make things more flexible within the sector. So if you have a person, he can double hat, he can do multiple jobs, we can train him. So the concierge can also be the person who can man the front desk. And the person who's waiting, serving in the restaurant, off-peak, he can go and do some rooms. So these flexibilities we can do. Total numbers, we have to be quite tight. But what to do? We have to manage the numbers. They're still growing a bit faster than we would like them to grow.
We're still talking about governance now, and we've had a lot of questions about governance. Many of them take us back 2 years to the GE of 2011, when there were deep-seated grievances. Foreigners, housing, transport. These were hot-button issues. How would you assess what you and your team have done thus far to address these?
I think we've made significant progress. It took a while both to manage the issues, but also manage the sentiments and get people to look at it in a more positive and constructive way as we made progress. I think on housing, we've built a lot of units. The queues have come down. The prices are stable. I think there's more assurance now that you can afford your HDB flat. I tried very hard in the rally to explain the numbers and take people through some examples. And these were realistic, typical examples. You can afford a flat. There's no need to worry. Get one, get married, start a family. Transport, we've made progress with the bus services enhancement. We've got more than 200 buses running. We look at the statistics every month, and we can see that the crowded services have got fewer. We still need to get some more buses on the roads. We still need to get more bus drivers on the roads, hired, but we're working at it. The trains will take a bit longer because the train upgrading to get the new signaling laid, to get the new lines running, stations, to get more trains, rolling stock to arrive. That will take a couple more years. It'll be 2015, 2016. But we are making as much haste as we possibly can.
Well, just to jump in here, as you're talking about these policies, we've got a tweet from a Julan Tru who says, that he hopes these policies are not reactionary but truly well thought out and sensitive to the needs of a diverse society.
Well, that is what we're trying to do. I think it's very easy when you get a sudden conflagration on the internet, all of a sudden, overnight, 10,000 tweets or something like that. Then you jump, and the next day you may regret it. And I think that's one of the reasons why when we see something getting hot, we want to try and take a step back, pause, think carefully, plan carefully, and then make a step which you won't later on regret. And I think the public transport part is something which we need to do. We do take a chance. We're putting in a lot of it. If it turns out that you don't need it so quickly, or you have a bit more slack capacity, well, so be it. I spent money earlier than I needed. But these are things which I need to do. Housing is a similar situation, because there have been times before when we've been short of flats, and we've built furiously, and then suddenly the Asian crisis came, and all of a sudden I had huge numbers of flats empty. You could walk into HDB and buy a flat overnight. And people didn't because they were uncertain about the economy. And we carried a big burden, and we had to explain why you were spending government money building flats which nobody in the end wanted. So there are some of these uncertainties. We must be prepared for them.
All right, we'll hold that thought for a minute and we'll go for a quick break right now. When we come back, we will cover the issue of also forging a new social compact, and we'll hear more of your questions for the Prime Minister. Do also send us your tweets and your comments along the way, so stay tuned.